Hello, family, consciousness family. Hope everyone is doing well. And I mean that sincerely with all of the crazy stuff that's going on, all of the very intense energy that seems to be circulating. I think things are just getting more and more heightened as we move forward. And specifically from, the spiritual perspective, which, I think people maybe realize this now that, the war that we're having is not really a war of bombs. And I mean, we still have all that and killing people, but it's a spiritual war and such an exhausting thing to go through. Um, I've been at this work my entire life and it never ends. It doesn't just stop. So when people are like, "I'm enlightened, I'm this, I'm that," I'm like, "Okay, I don't know if you're under psychosis or what is going on." And sometimes I'm like, "Dang, maybe I should be under psychosis of happiness and joy and everything's perfect, hunky dory." Um, but as a clairvoyant, as an empath, as somebody who can feel energy, things seem to be getting very heavy and really we're at a breaking point, man. It's almost
Mhm.
like, especially in America, it's like this slave labor that they've put us under forever is really
Mhm.
starting to get to people. They're just
Yeah.
exhausted. Everybody's
Mm.
so exhausted and I'm exhausted. Um, everything's a
I
battle.
agree.
It's like, you know, um, not to say that there's not good going on for sure in the world, but I think people are just exhausted. And that's what I hear from so many people. So
Yeah.
many emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically not doing well or feeling challenged at every level. And I think physiologically it's been such a huge burden on individual on our bodies. Physiologically I think we're experiencing that kind of backlash of all the stuff we've carried for so long,
Mm.
particularly this generation, and it's a lot. It really is a lot.
Yeah,
And so,
definitely.
trying times, and how do we overcome them, right? That's what I said, how do we overcome them? Tell me what you're thinking, Pam.
Oh
Go
my
ahead.
gosh. No, I mean, you're spot on. It's exactly what I've been feeling and dealing with. I feel like winter, right? Especially looking back from the autumn equinox to now we're a week out from the spring equinox. So it feels like it's been this really long, kind of heavy season where people have been really in this underworld journey, really tried with challenges, unexpected challenges in their lives. Um, Transitional states, maybe feeling stuck and things not, shifting as smoothly and quickly as people hope for. And then with myself, like you said, it's that transmutation of the heavy, heavy, collective, archetypal, like all this energy.
Mm,
Um, and it's knowing that it's not my wound, right? It's knowing that it's other people's wounds, it's other people's mirroring and projecting, and just finding a space to really protect myself and my energy body and my physical, emotional, mental bodies, and doing the work to heal and clear and channel, the pure light and whatever, through Gaia's grid. And like we've talked about my experience over the past weekend up in the mountains and in the new moon energy, like just being a fish in a hot tub. um but that's one thing that over the years has become a repeated theme in my own archetypal kind of, personal narrative, is that unshackling and freeing myself
mm,
as a slave to the system, right? Something that really got
mm,
overpowered somewhere along the lines and is trying to, like, break free from this energetic
Mhm.
It feels like a chess game, right? Like, I don't wanna I'm not a pawn anymore, like, I'm gonna be the queen of the board energy.
Mhm.
And it is draining and it's exhausting, and I'm just even trying to change the narrative around, like, the whole battling of dark and light, because I don't that narrative's heavy. And I'm like, "Okay, let's try a new perspective to look at this." But, um but thank goodness for, like, the violet flame and, certain tools and practices that I use, to help me in that transmutation.
Mhm. Yeah, it's true. It is the narratives that we play out, and something I always say is like, "Well, we're making all this shit up, if you're gonna make something up, make something up that's gonna serve you." But it's sometimes it's hard, right, to get out of the narrative that the programming, the narrative, the historical narratives that we've been circulating under, which would be, our parents or how we were raised, like we still hold on to a lot of those narratives and subconsciously don't realize
Yeah.
it. Like we were even talking about that today, right? And it's like
Yeah.
the subconscious and the unconscious somehow plays out without us really even it's kind of tricky not
Mm,
really knowing that's what's playing out. And so it is sometimes hard to get out of those narratives of especially when they're just over and over being thrown in your face, and whatever this other energy is, if it's a denser energy, a heavy energy, trying to maybe, keep us, from expanding consciousness, right? It's like stifling us or it's sucking
mm,
out our energy. Sometimes it's
yeah,
really hard to overcome, and like you said, you have tools, and changing the narrative too is really good. But then there's also that point too for me where it's like, well, okay, is this psychosis? Because you have to face some
yeah,
of the challenges that do show up too. So it's kind of like
yeah,
that tipping point. But I do agree with you in that we need to maybe look at these darker. I don't like to say darker, but these heavier energies that are trying to keep us sort of grounded and trapped and like in their own twisted narratives that are like
yeah,
enslavement, right? It feels like
right,
enslavement is what it feels like.
right.
And then it's like you said, it's a game of chess. Like, how do you go from pawn to queen? Or how do you even throw the chessboard away and start a just different game altogether? Like, that is a
Yeah.
question I have because that's like doesn't even seem I don't even know if it's possible at this point. I mean, I think I was so optimistic as a kid. Like when you're a kid, you're just, you know how it is. You're just like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's going to be great and I'm going to help change the world. And then you like the reality of the world slaps you in the face and you're like, whoa,
yeah,
never mind, you know? And it's like, okay, well, then I'm going to save myself. And then you get slapped in the face. You're like, holy shit, this is too much. I mean, it's just a lot.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but no, I like that, having tools, I think, because this is like trying times and how do we overcome? And I think part of it is having tools to help move us through. I can tell you right now, I feel so stuck. I've never felt more stuck in my life than I do at this point, which is just the weirdest thing to me because, I'm like, am I pushing through the most monumental time of my life where
mm,
this is like no, I wouldn't say a final test, but this is like the big grand, because every chapter has
mhm,
this chapter, right, of like the hero's journey. I
right,
know you really like the hero's journey. So where it's like this is oh, it's kind of funny. I'm watching once, but is this like the final battle? You know what I mean? Almost. Um, which I mean, there's many more, but this kind of feels like it's coming to a head for me in a lot of
yeah,
ways.
yeah,
And I'm
no, I
like,
understand
yeah, and then I feel physically exhausted. I mean, to the
that.
point where I'm like, I am clawing at everything and anything to feel better. Just really
Yeah,
kind of sucks. Um, and I don't think we talk about that piece enough. It's like, I'm spiritually great, everything's so wonderful. But the real true exhaustion that comes with this work of your body's exhaustion, like to the
yeah,
point where I feel like passing out but I have all
mhm,
this crap that I need to get done. I have to adult. Like, what
yes,
do? We just like,
right,
I can't just let
yeah,
it go. So,
no, and that's
I
where,
guess I
like,
could. I could just let it go. Yeah.
Well, that's where the
Just not move
ego,
out,
I
and they
think,
charge me $1,000,000 or whatever. Sorry, go ahead, what?
yeah. No, I'm saying, but that's where like the ego really comes in and shows us, I think, our wounds and stuff, right? Because how do we treat ourselves in those moments of overwhelm when our
Mhm.
body's saying, like, I've had enough, I need to rest. But based on culture and everything else, it's like, no, I have to keep going because I'm lazy or I'm this, or you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So we lose compassion for ourselves. So I think it's really important to like let it go for sure. I've had to learn to do that. I'm in the same spot, like I'm ready for spring cleaning. I'm looking around here and it's like, man, didn't I just do all this? Didn't I just do decluttering? And you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like trying to
Yep,
get,
and how do you end up with more stuff?
I know. And that's the thing. I'm like, I didn't, I haven't bought things. Like, what the hell? I
I
don't get
told
it.
you, this is a real conundrum, right? That Lala should be
Mm,
laughing at me. "What do you mean?" I'm like, "I
yeah.
cleaned out my closet. How do I have more clothes?" You know? Um,
Right.
which is just funny, right? Um, but
Yeah. I got
but
to let
here's the
go.
deal, and I love the idea of letting go, right? Could. You're absolutely correct, but like, I gotta move. I gotta pack, like, I'm leaving the 29th. There
Yeah.
is no,
Yeah.
like,
So you can't be
just,
really slowed
"Hey,
down.
maybe a ferry will come pack my crap for me." I have help. I will say I have friends that show up, so that's always a plus, right? Like, a good
Yeah.
friend of mine people always show up too, so that's another thing. How do we overcome? Well, we help each other, right? And, like,
Right.
it's we pray, I pray. I'm like, "God, help me. Help show me, send people my way." And then, mysteriously, people will show up that are like just ready to help, like
Yeah.
just fully 100% ready to help. And I had a friend who's like, "Do you need me to go just be with you?" I mean, it was just the most heartfelt thing. And
Sweet.
and I said, I don't know if I even need somebody to like help me pack, which is fine. She's gonna do that when she comes here, but it's just having a person here with me. I need
Yeah.
some hand holding sometimes. I'm all, I just need love, you know,
Right?
and it was cool, and she's like, "Hey, I'll go." And then she said something like, I can't move things, I can't carry things, but I can help you clean if you need
Yeah.
help cleaning, and just the offer. Not even that I would take her up on her offer. I might, but the reality is like just even someone knowing that someone's there to offer that is such a beautiful thing. And
Yeah,
I'm so
absolutely.
grateful for that, so I think, people do show up. Aloha. People do show up, in your life, and that's another way that we overcome, I think, in trying times. We gotta help each other, we gotta support each other, especially when we're feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and just
Mhm.
don't feel like we can carry on, because I'm at
Yeah.
that point where I'm just like, "You know what? If I just go tomorrow, I am fine." I'm just, like,
Yeah, I've
over
been
playing this
there.
game. I just want to let it all go. Just like, I don't wanna
Yeah.
do this game anymore, I'm over it. I'm done with the
Yeah,
game.
I've been there. It's
You
hard,
know?
it's exhausting. I
It
mean,
is.
it can feel like you're just weighed down, and sometimes, like, there's no raft, right? There's nothing, no lifesaver coming your way at all,
Yeah.
but you gotta that's where it's all the wisdom, though, I feel like has to be your anchor. Like all of that inner wisdom from the previous
Mhm.
experiences, because 'cause you've been through this before and you know it's
Yeah.
gonna happen again, and so it's like tapping into that aspect of what you've learned and how you can be stronger. But you're
Yeah.
right, self-care is so truly important, and listening to the body and just knowing like your priorities, I think realistically, like obviously you're moving, so you can't, that's a different priority. You got to try and summon up that energy, right? So
Where's my fairy
prioritizing,
godmother when I need her?
right,
Just kidding.
right.
See, this is where psychosis comes in. I'm all, she'll show up, and then it's like time to move. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you
I
never
swear I had a
know.
fairy godmother who would do all this for me. No, it doesn't work that way, darn it. That is not
The
reality.
power of
Uh,
miracles.
But in a way, a fairy godmother did kind of show up in my friend, right? She's like, "Hey, I'm not
Yeah.
going to do it all for you in a wave of a wand, but I will help you do the hard work." And I'm like, "Right, let's go."
Yeah.
So in a way, it's like it's a both and. I guess your fairy godmothers do show up in some ways, right? Your friends will, yeah, and it's weird. It's never like the people you expect, right? I always
Mm.
thought that that was such a weird thing. That when we are going through these hard times, even if you're like getting sick or energetically drained or whatever it is, that for
Mhm.
whatever reason, if you really believe, and this has worked many times, and people know when you truly are like, I really need support right now, the most random people show up. It's just
Yeah.
no one you ever expect. Right? And I think for the longest time, it was always like, oh, you kind of have an idea who you think will show up, but then it's like,
Yeah.
no, it's out of your control. You don't know what the universe is going to send to you. It's going to be the right person, the
Yeah.
perfect person that needs to show up for you, Like the other day I was
Yeah.
sick and the individuals that were here that showed up, I was like, wow, that's very kind and compassionate, right?
Mm.
Of course, Lala's here. So she's like, you need tea. So, and then I was like, yes, thank you. Like, that care, but then another person's like, "Hey, I will take soup to you." This person didn't ask for anything, literally drives across town to bring me something and didn't ask for
Yeah.
anything in return, which is just to me, it's like, whoa. So there's still this beauty in the world. Um, it, but how do we like come together?
Yeah.
People come
Make it
together,
more the
right? So that
norm.
we, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I think that's the important thing about being open though. You said at least like I want help. Like there's so many people in the collective that can't ask for help. And
yeah.
being closed off to giving and receiving, right? It has to be that flow of energy to give and to receive.
Mhm.
Um So absolutely. I think that's a huge first step just to work with that energy block and to allow yourself to recognize like I need help. I can't do it alone. There's no shame and guilt around that, right? Because I think that's a huge
Mhm.
emotion consequence
Mhm.
that we all feel. Um
Yeah.
but yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful when you can open up so wide for to receive from the universe, like you said, that it's unexpected ways, it's new possibilities that would have never been there before when your heart and your mindset, is closed off. So
Yep.
I agree. That's
Absolutely.
a
Absolutely.
powerful, yeah, powerful state to be in. Mm.
I agree. It's asking
Yeah.
for support and being able to receive support. That is huge too, especially for a lot of women. Like that's our natural essence should be to receive, you know what I mean? Um,
Mm,
and in the feminine quality, it is that, right? It's like that giving,
right.
receiving, but also receiving is a very feminine quality. It's like opening up, and sometimes we're just like, we don't even know how. And
Right.
that's crazy to me. It took me a long time for sure because of like, oh, I'm a burden, or I'm too much, or I'm asking too much, or why would they want to help
Right.
me? Or feeling like I have an obligation to do something if they're going to help me, or you know what I mean? And
Right.
it's like, oh, but really, people genuinely show up and care. They're like, "No, I'm
Right.
here to support you when I can, right? In ways that I can." And I think that's such a like just, it's the beauty of humanity when we're all like that. I think we would be in such a state where we're just like, oh, so exhausted of like people taking and taking. I mean, and by people
Yeah.
or by them or by the it's government, right? It just takes and takes. They're takers, man. They are takers. Now
Yeah.
they're taking too
Well,
much
I would
at
say
this
as a
point.
mom, I've experienced it with my children
Oh
too. I've
god.
definitely have
Oh,
felt
okay, okay,
that.
yes.
Like
Your
they
kids are
take
like
and
the
they take,
government. Children are like
right?
the government. They take and take and take.
they, they take and they take, but at what point can you give back? So
Mhm.
that's been some energy work and healing around that, but for sure. But I think even in plant medicine, I've had some beautiful experiences. Actually, when I was on ayahuasca and I was dealing with my masculine energy, and I had to ask for help. Especially you think
Mhm.
about like the masculine who's so strong and protective, and is supposed to be the productive, energy space. So in that sense, I was drawn towards this woman, who was very kind and sweet, very fairy, kind of angelic. Like, we had talked previously. She had 3 sons, so we had already connected as moms. So in that ceremonial healing space, when I needed to go for help and ask, I felt like I struggled, but yet I
Mm,
did it because that was my
mhm,
ego death, like to be able to work through it. And I remember just hugging her and crying and being like, thank
mhm,
you. Like,
mhm,
this was hard for me, but I needed to be able to ask for just a glass of water, or just, whatever it was. But I
mhm,
felt like
mhm.
that burden, like you said. But it so deeply healed some of my masculine energy that I was able to then, after that ceremonial space, continue with the integration and doing the work, that again helped me shift and open up. Because my thing is, as a feminine, I have pleaded for help. I have
Mm,
cried, I have begged, I have had tears gushing, asking for that help. And the
mm,
masculine has been like, no, you can't. I'm
mm,
not reliable. I'm either going to screw it up or I'm not going to follow through. You know what I mean? Or just go YouTube it and figure it out on yourself.
mm,
So I
mhm,
had no
mhm.
masculine energy I could rely on so for me, learning to ask for help and receive help with those wounded energies, it was a big lesson, and it took time. Um, so I definitely hope people out there, know this work isn't done overnight. It's been years and years of daily dedication. Um, but it does get to a point where we get through it and we are able to get to the other side and be transformed in the process.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a beautiful example,
Yeah.
of what needs of a healing process really that happens because it is uncomfortable at first.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
is scary
Vulnerability has
and
brought.
oh, for sure. For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And then also after the fact of like processing, and it's so sad that we're like that, right? Because well, I mean, you would think about it, we're an individualistic society, right? Where collectivism has kind of been out. And like I am trying to figure out what is the balance between those two types of structures because we do need our individual we need to individuate, we need to have our identity, we need to know our divine purpose, but we also need to do that collaboratively. So I think they offer both,
Mm.
but they all have shadows, of course, that
Yes.
there's, we can sit there and we can say, glamorize, romanticize collectivism, but then there's a lot of shadow there too that we're not willing to do as well. But also in the individualistic societies like America, it's like, oh, they have their individual life, but then also we're like, now we're screaming for support from one another and nobody's, I'm not gonna say nobody, but generally it's like competition, dog eat dog.
Yeah.
That's been the model we've been living by for so long in America. That's what, we know. It's competition. It's now I'm not saying competition is not good or, neither's right, wrong, good or bad, but there has to be this healthy balance. And I think we're
Mhm.
leaning too far to this individualistic mindset and it's weighing on people because now we're like not we're afraid to even ask for support, from one
Yeah.
another. And that shouldn't be a narrative that we have, should be, yeah, I have a little bit more I can support, and we should be able to feel like I'm worthy of that. I'm not,
Yeah.
it's not that. And then also on the same token, there shouldn't be too much of, receiving and not giving back. So it's a synergy of give, receive, give, receive, give, receive, give or taker is what we call it. But, you know, we can take and we can also give, when we can, which is just a model I just never understood how, um, we don't live by that model anyway, right? In a lot of ways, especially capitalist
Mm.
for sure, because there's a lot of waste, I think. Anyway, that goes into like
Yeah.
bigger narratives and stuff. But, but yeah, I think if we learn to do this with each other, right, by example, to really love each other
Mm.
and connect. And before I'm sending this to you, like, Bray, thank you for being on here, by the way. I would get into it, and then I'm like, oh, I want to say these things. But we are doing a women's circle on April 19th at 7 Eastern time. If you want to join, you are more than welcome. You can just go to womenofconsciousness.com and sign up to our email subscription. And then when we have that going on, we can send out that information to you. Or you can email us directly at womenofconsciousness@gmail.com, and we can send you that information if you're interested in joining the women's circle. So something we want to do just to kind of gather for women who are,
Mm.
seeking self-love, empowerment, all that good stuff. Sacred ceremony done virtually.
Yeah.
um, so in a collective spiritual circle, I don't know. So learning how to call in as Raven had said, I guess she was doing a circle, sacred circle. The one who reads my cards, my oracle reader, she was like,
Yeah.
we were talking about this goddess stuff, and everybody was like, oh, technology, and she's like, I think we need to call in the gods of technology into our circle so that things go good, because that's the way we're going. So they did it. They called
Yeah,
it in,
Age of
you know what I mean?
Aquarius,
She's like,
right?
and then everything went perfect. She's like, and then technology was good. It was called into the circle. It's a consciousness. Um, so anyway, little off
I
topic,
love it.
but yeah, so if you want to, what I'll do is I'll send let me put it in here.
Yeah, I've definitely Hermes with with his retrograde technology issues. I've had some conversations with the
Uh-huh.
gods for sure. So that's awesome. But I think that's what we're missing too, right? Some of that heavy energy we feel talking about archetypes and whatnot. Um, like the gods are missing, right? The spirit in its own essence is missing from the mundane. And that comes with that heavy, burnt out void that people are feeling. Waking up and doing the same thing day in and day out is just not,
No.
it's fulfilling to some extent, but there's that lack, there's something else. And I know for me personally, looking at like my life before and then looking at it now, there were times when I was really tested in the heaviness, and I remember fighting, because I definitely will yell back at the universe when I disagree with what's happening.
Mhm.
And there was a really, really painful moment where I was like, I'm done. I'm going to walk away. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, maybe my soul wants to experience this, but on some point, like, my ego did not accept this mission and is now declining and is turning my back. And I think maybe I was stubborn for about a week. But the
Oh,
pain of
that's it?
walking
Just
away
a
from
week?
my yeah, I think so, because like the pain of walking away, because I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do any spiritual practices. I'm not going to
Mhm.
listen to the downloads. I'm not going to do, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm done with the spirit realm. You want it? I'm just going to be human. And I couldn't, like, there was so much pain in me that I couldn't turn my back on my gods and goddesses. Like I couldn't turn my back on, you know what I mean? The energy that I work with and the elements and the ceremonies that I do. Like I had such a void, and like so much was missing. Even though I was just trying to be stubborn and prove a point, but it was totally egoic, healing that needed to happen. Because of course it was twin flame stuff, and it gets pretty painful. And I was like, well, I'm done. I don't want to, like, I didn't sign up for any of this. I'm done.
Yeah,
But you,
that's
you know,
funny. You're like, "It was just a week." Some people turn their face away from it for long periods of time, you know what I mean?
yeah,
So,
I
I'm glad it
couldn't.
was
It
just a
felt
week and
so,
that we're
oh,
here today talking about
mm,
this stuff, because
yeah.
it is hard. And I think too, when I say try, like, even the podcast of trying times is not just trying times, it's on all domains, man. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's
Hmm.
all of them are
Hmm.
being
Hmm.
totally just like snuffed out. It's like you just obey and do what I say. And it's the system we've co-created. Um
Yeah.
humanity, it emerged for a reason the way it did. This emergence
Mhm.
of the United States, there was some intention behind it, of course, but it is historical that the narrative started in ancient times, and now I think we're at the pinnacle of what that kind of the twisted narrative that started in ancient times. That's what I would say. Sort of the
Yeah.
symbolism and all that. We're at a head right now where it's really overwhelming people in all ways. And so it's really hard because we're not just dealing with this energy at a spirit, because it is a spiritual battle for sure, but we're going to experience that physiologically. The more and more you
Yeah.
look at humanity, especially here in America, people don't feel good. They have chronic pain. I mean, it's all
Mhm.
interconnected. And I do
Mhm.
nutrition, and I don't feel good. And even as a nutritionist who eats right, I don't drink, I don't do anything. The worst that I do is coffee. I make most of my meals. I'd say about 98% of the time I eat at home. That's a high percentage. So I know where I'm getting my food. I'm cooking it, and I'm still waking up feeling like shit. Like that, there's something wrong there. It doesn't match
Yeah.
up, right? Working out, so I do kung fu. So when you're taking care of the physical aspects of your life and you're still waking up feeling terrible, something else is going on, right? So it's like, well, okay, is it
Mhm.
spiritual? Let me look at my spiritual life. Um, Let me look at my emotional life and see where that's at. But it's all together, and I think we sort of silo these things out, and we
Mhm.
don't look at it like holistically from all of those aspects. And even when I would say
Yeah.
like looking at, because like how do we overcome, right? Well, you've got to look at it. What is your body telling you? I personally am saying, okay, what do I need to do to support my body? Maybe spiritually and emotionally I'm drained, but how can I support my body? Maybe I can't control what's happening to me emotionally at this point. I mean, emotions aren't
Mm.
supposed to be, they're irrational. They're not rational. You can't rationalize emotions. They just are, right? They live within us. So I can't really
Right.
control
Waves
that
of
sometimes.
energy that just come and go.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, okay, spiritually, my spirit's gonna do what the hell it wants. The ego, I might be able to, like I may be able to tell the ego to shut up a little bit, but what can I control? Well, I know I can control what I put in my face, and I know I can check my blood work, and I always tell people too, like, that's another way to overcome, is to start there, because people don't realize that nutrition and health is a connection to how we feel and the way we perceive life itself as well. So for
Yeah.
instance, vitamin D, when it's low, which we all suffer from vitamin D deficiency, is that when your vitamin D is low, depression is there. And people don't know that, because people say, well, I'm just depressed. I'm just depressed. And the first thing I'm like, have you got your blood work done? Like, just go get your blood work done just to make sure that all of these things are optimal, because they really kind of, well, if you think about it, we're cells. So we can go into the whole scientific, we're cells, we vibrate, right? Our mitochondria need to be all that stuff. So I'm not going to go into the whole nutrition thing. However, if our bodies aren't supported to receive these light codes, right? If we are not taking care of
Yeah.
the vessel that we hold this information, we're gonna feel shitty. So I am feel like, okay, well then I'm probably not doing a good job at nutritionally. And what the hell are they putting in our food? Because if I'm eating by myself and I'm receiving all of this emotional download, my body should be able to handle it, but it can't. And so I feel overly drained. There's adrenal
Mm.
fatigue. I mean, we see so many women going through this right now. It's adrenal fatigue. You know what I mean? We're seeing women having gastric issues. We see women having anxiety or high cortisol levels. And even men too are going through this. And so we're like, well, what do we need to do? You can control what you put in your mouth. And that's a way that I try to overcome. Like now I'm going to be trying this cleanse that is a healthy cleanse, not a just drink a bunch of juice cleanse, because that would not work for me. But it allows you to eat and stuff like that, but a cleanse for my body. So my cellular body can vibrate to receive the light codes that need to come in, to receive the sun's energy, to receive this cosmic energy that's trying to express itself through my vessel. And
Right.
that's a way to that I can control. So that's kind of what I look at, and those are ways that I overcome. And I think a lot of what you were saying in terms of you is like this ritualistic stuff. But honestly, nutrition and health are so critical because we have been given this divine vessel, and
Mm.
we have to purify it the best that we can, because our cells are vibrating on a frequency, right? The mitochondria, all that stuff. And if our
Yeah.
cells aren't healthy, how can you receive the things that you need to receive? You're not going to be able to, right?
Yeah.
Our bodies won't be able to handle it. You're going to get spiritually exhausted, emotionally exhausted. You're going to feel like you can't go on. So, taking care of the vessel is a big way to overcome these trying times as well, is to really, really take care of yourself, drink enough water, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and if you are an individual who's like, well, I like to have drinks or whatever, that doesn't make you wrong. Um, but you also got to say, well, how is this contributing to the well-being of my body, right? Some people can handle it. I can tell you I'm very sensitive. I can't do all that stuff. I'm already too sensitive. My body's too sensitive to too many things to begin with. So I personally can't indulge in any of that stuff. Um, but other individuals may be able to, right? And so, it's not like cut your life off for sure. But it's also, if
Mm.
you are feeling that way, you need to ask yourself if some of the lifestyle is contributing to that feeling too. And
Yeah.
how can you switch the lifestyle, which is like, that's like a whole other thing. But, I know for
Absolutely.
me, that's kind of what I'm doing to try to overcome it, because I feel so emotionally drained. I literally the other day in my gut, right? I'm like, what is going on with my gut? That's our other brain. It just kind of like, it didn't hurt, but I started to feel very lethargic, like I was going to fall asleep and pass out. And it wasn't a sugar low, but something in my
Mm.
gut wasn't right. And I started to want to fall asleep. Like I thought I was going to pass out. And I'm like, what is going on with me? You know what I mean? And then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, I have all this emotional baggage, this spiritual stuff that's going on, my ego, all the things, and I'm exhausted. So I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can get my body to start working properly so that I can start receiving these DNA codes. Like, even people talk about DNA, RNA. Well, we can change it, but if
Mhm.
you're not doing things actively to help your body to receive these light codes,
Yeah.
it's you're not going to be able to, because your vessel isn't purified to receive that information.
Right.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like the heaviness. And so I'm at that place too, because I know I'm not receiving the things that I need to. So really working at that. But I did want to talk about the nutrition, because I know that's something that we can do. And also, like Pam was saying, the rituals that she's doing, those are things we can control too.
Mm.
Meditation, all the other things that come in, soaking in a hot tub, getting a massage.
Yeah.
Those are all good things you can control too, but they're all to help the body, right? The body
Right.
to kind of purify itself to receive this energy.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's why I've told you, like, I went vegetarian years ago,
mhm. Yeah,
literally, like, overnight. I mean, I tried going vegan and threw myself into, like, psychosis.
for sure.
I mean, I was in the grocery store freaking out at all of the labels, all the ingredients. Like, I was having panic attacks. My daughter was just like, "What the hell's wrong with you?" You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
was just overnight because I had been doing the work, and it just, like, right, my body just could no longer, it didn't want it, completely rejected it, and sent me into psychosis for a minute until I, like, learned to, like, I don't know, re kind of find a diet, not a diet, but just to find what worked for me, that my body
Mhm.
could handle and what it wanted. Because the body definitely lets us know too, right? What it needs and what it
Mhm.
wants. And I think we're so used to being dissociated from our bodies.
Mhm,
that we
mhm,
have no idea what nutrients it's lacking. We have no idea what trauma it's holding on to because the body, it holds in right in the cellular memory, like you said, trauma wounds.
mhm,
So it, like we were talking this morning, uncovering more layers and more layers because we're always going to have levels of wounds, right? No one will ever be 100% healed. Um, there's not one person walking on this planet who's healed in any capacity.
or
So
we'd
I
live
think for
forever,
sure
right?
it's right. That you wouldn't be on this planet. You'd be somewhere else already. You'd be an ascended master somewhere else. Like that's where we're all evolving to. It's to learn, right? All of
Uh-huh,
that stuff.
uh-huh,
Um, but for sure, like that's why we're here. We're here to, face what it means to be human, to grow and evolve, um,
mhm,
and to do all of this work. I think it's also too like knowing what works best for us and then putting time aside in doing that rather than not making ourselves a priority.
mhm,
A lot of
mhm,
us, I think it's family, it's friends, it's commitments to work or school, sports, whatever, but where's the commitment to ourselves for our own
mhm,
personal development and our own growth? Um, I don't know that that's a priority in our collective too
mhm,
much.
mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's funny because I watched this video. It's so good. It's like and the girl my sister sent it to me because, of course, her and I are always talking about, this trauma that we hold from our parents and all this stuff, and she said, she talked about how there's this weird dynamic between boomers and maybe even Gen X and their children, the relationship they have with their children, and that, millennials and all that stuff, and kind of our age range, right, where we're at, are like
Mm,
just over the let's sweep it under the rug traditions and being
yeah.
guilted into these ways.
Mhm.
And she's like, we're just over it. We're done. We just don't want to do this anymore. And we're not going to sit at the table, pretend things are okay when they're not but it's
Yeah.
so hard because that's again exhausting, and that's why we're in these trying times too, because we're starting to stand up and question, and we're starting to say we want something different. We're exhausted. We're over, all of
Yeah.
these let's pretend, that everything is okay, sweep it under the rug, and then we show up for Christmas and smile and act like everything's good, and then, you know, go on with your day or
But
whatever.
nobody even
She's
wants to
like,
be there. They're
"I'm
all
tired
moaning and groaning to show up. Can't wait to
of she's
leave.
like, "I'm
Do it
tired of
again next year.
to go to church." Like, I ain't going to church. Like, I'm being guilted to, like, sit at the table and, you know,
No.
and have
No.
these dinners and
Absolutely not.
pretend, and so I think we're calling forth, an authentic reality of what this dense energy is telling us. Because the
Mhm.
energy has been here forever, but especially in America, we sweep it under the rug, and we act like it doesn't exist, and then that's been our
Right.
demise. That's a problem because it's gonna scream at us louder, like, "I'm here. I
Right.
don't know what you're thinking, I'm not going anywhere." Um, and
Right.
so it's like, how do we, really look at it? It's exhausting, and that's probably a lot of the reason why too, because we've never given it a space and a place. We've merely acted like it doesn't even exist. We're like, "No, this
Yeah.
doesn't exist. Let's just pretend that, you know, the father wasn't an abuser. Let's just not even talk about how, he beat mom or, and all these things." And we're just like, what? Or let's just, oh no, I never
Mm.
did that to you. The parents not taking personal responsibility for their actions. We see that a lot with this
Yeah.
generation. And it's really and then on the other spectrum, I do see how it's hard for these parents. I think my dad was like, "Natalie, I'm 70 years old." And I'm like, "Okay, you're right." So, there's some fairness there too in that they are afraid to face their own shadow because, I mean, God, they're older now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's a lot of stuff they have to face, and I think we're naturally have been trying to face it with little doses throughout our life, and so we're not
Yeah.
just we're taking the little shots, you know what I mean? And I'm over here handing my dad the entire tequila bottle and telling him to drink it, you know? It's like it'd be, like, totally, like, you know? But in those tiny instances, it's really hard, and I think that's a lot of the reason too that we are, facing these things, you know, and it's just, I think our generation has been handed a tough situation, and
Mhm.
I wonder, you know, I feel for the generation after us and the ones that come after us because we're
Yeah.
trying to untangle this stuff. I mean, we're the trailblazers of untangling all of this stuff, which is like we have the hardest job of all right now. You know what I mean? Our age range, our spiritually
Yeah.
awoke people. It's a very heavy lift, you know, that we're doing. I think we should give, you know, honestly, just right now, I'm like, God, we should give ourselves credits for doing the work. So, you know, anyone who's out there who listens to this that's, you know, in this
Mm.
era, be kind to yourself because the things that we're dealing with are not easy during this era. The things that we're having to face are not easy. And I know that we're having to face them so that the next generation can have some hope for their future. You know, that's what we're trying
Yeah.
to do is instill this hope for the future generations because honestly, you know, I could say we're maybe at oh, I would say we're half life, you know, we're at half life. We're at the midlife, perhaps.
Yeah.
We have a whole life ahead of them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's like, how much can we how much of a legacy can we leave for these kiddos? We have to be able to overcome our shit. They're
Yeah.
I mean, we're the hope for the next generation. I mean, and that's such a heavy burden for our generation to carry, and I don't know that the generations before us really get the burden that we're carrying right now. I don't think they truly understand
Mm.
what we're
No.
carrying. I mean, you think about them. They were all peace, love, and, they were able to just be free and half naked and smoking weed and
I
freedom and
know.
all of it, you know?
I know, I
You know, they
wonder,
were
like, where are the grandparents of the '60s? Like, where have you gone? Where is that revolutional,
they
like,
were so busy
energy?
partying. They felt liberated that they were partying, and they left their kids to be latchkey kids. That's what they did, and they don't wanna
Oh.
admit it. Do you know what I mean? The majority of them were out there partying. Okay, 'Kay? I'm sorry, let's just be real.
Yeah.
They were doing cocaine, smoking weed, and, you know, love, peace, and
Let's
let's
but
do
let's
it
fight
up.
the system, like, don't give into it.
Yeah, let's fight the system, and they
Let's
you know, and
mm,
then they kinda got stuck there partying thinking and then I thought that was the way, and so I was just this latchkey kid. Plus, we had the industrial era where it's like these women starting to go to work and feel liberated and,
yeah,
you know, and then the home got all messed up because women used to stay home with the kids and so then now we had mom, dad both working because of the American middle class dream and the big house and all the things they sold us during that time. And, you know, and then so now no one's in the home to really take care of the kids. And on the weekends, the parents are just wanting to party. And it's just I mean, it is
weird.
a it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like they live, let's just say this,
Yeah,
they were able to live it up as much as they say it was hard. It wasn't hard. They were living the life. They were even though they were
yeah,
fighting and protesting, you know, this opening up a business was so easy. There was money floating around. The economy was starting to be stimulated. You know what I mean? It's like they were
yeah,
living it up. They were living it up. They did not see any of what we're going through now coming. And now we're like, okay, now we're paying for your party.
yeah. Right, every
And I want you
generation's
guys
just
to pay for
suffering for the
your party.
generation before.
You know? Um, so
Yeah.
we're paying for the party, you know, and I don't just mean with money. I mean, we're paying spiritually, emotionally, the trauma that
Oh,
was
yeah.
circulated during those times. We're paying the price now, you know? Um,
Yeah, oh god, the
and I'm
planet
sure
sure is with all the resources.
Oh God, for sure. It's just woof,
Yeah.
it's just woof. It
Yeah.
was,
It's like, yeah.
but I mean, look at it. Look at the 70s, the 60s, 70s, even in the 80s,
Yeah.
90s. So there,
Yeah. Oh my God. I loved growing up in the 90s. Are you kidding me? Like, it was the best. I'm so glad that I did. Like, after
gosh,
9/11, like, life was so transformed. It hasn't been the same. And then all of the technology. And so I'm so
it's been
grateful
a
for
lot.
like that 80s and 90s time period that I was able to experience.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so we know what the good feels like, but we know what the bad feels like. And this generation, they just are like, man, I feel bad. I just feel really bad. I'm like, wow, because I can feel it. I can imagine what they're feeling. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
the economy is gone to hell basically. It's like, doesn't matter if they get out and work.
Yeah.
They know that if they work they still can't make a living, and that's weighing on them, and that's why they don't want to get out and work, and it makes sense. I mean, I can totally understand from that perspective, right? Why
Yeah.
they wouldn't want to. So, but I think, the trying times and how we overcome them, I really think our generation is the generation that has a heavy lift. We have a heavy burden to take on, to help
Mhm.
this generation coming up. And it's exhausting. It is. So if you guys feel exhausted, don't worry. Everybody's feeling exhausted. I
Right.
don't know if that makes you feel better. I hope it does. It might make you feel worse. Sorry. But, together we suffer, right? And that's what compassion means. Compassion means together we suffer, by the way, if you didn't know the etymology of the word. Ham, which is together, and pati, which is suffering. So compassion, right? Compati. Anyway, if you look up the
Mhm.
etymology, you'll know what that means. But we are kind of suffering together in this new era, and taking on these heavy burdens, and it's exhausting. So just know you're not alone. And that we women of consciousness is really here to kind of support those individuals. We are trying to create a community of individuals, um, new narratives and stuff like that. But again, it's not easy because this is historical stuff that's arising, and it's
Yeah.
ripping at the seams. So who knows what's gonna bust out or come busting out of it. But at least we're trying to burst out in a harmonious kind of way, right? If we're the volcano, we're just trying to be the lava that flows down the side of the volcano and not the eruption. Or maybe we'll be the eruption.
Right.
Who knows? I don't know. uh,
The
I think the
consciously
eruption's
creative
more of
lava.
a I know. But I think the eruption is like the collective just busting out and being like, I
Right.
can't do this
Yeah.
anymore.
I agree.
But I feel for those.
And that's the thing, talking about like technology and where we're at today too. It's like the lack of imagination, the lack of you know, being with the body and self-awareness, because when you're just outside in the external on a phone and stuff like that, how much internal work is happening, how much self-reflection is happening, how much are people really analyzing their emotions and their
Mhm,
mental state and their triggers,
mhm,
or
mhm,
are they just going, rejecting those emotions and going to social media and lashing out,
mhm,
or, going on their phone and just finding distractions, as well as, other things like you were talked about earlier, right? The substances that impact the body as well as the mental state. Because it's easy to
yeah,
find coping mechanisms that numb us out, when
sure.
it does get way too heavy of a burden to deal with. So there's always like some sort of escapism that maybe isn't beneficial because it's not bringing any actual healing, although it feels like it's healing in the moment because the weight of it all is lifted and you're not, paying attention to it. But at what cost ultimately? Because I feel like that's when it does become the volcano, right? When you ignore it, it just builds quietly in the subconscious until one day it erupts and festers and then spews out everywhere. And who knows what damage you cause by then? That's too late to maybe heal and clear. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely crazy. time period in this insane asylum that we're all experiencing, right? And then, like you were talking
Ah,
about the collective shadow, which I know we've done episodes on that before, and I think that's the thing too, where we can't ignore the shadow anymore. It's just too much for those who are doing the work, you know, like there's no ignoring it. You have to go through it and embrace it and integrate it. Um, and so the more that we do that, where we're, transmuting, it's going to bring more shadow, more, heavy energy. That's like, okay, well,
mm.
if you cleared and healed that, here's another way for you to clear and heal. And then just continues and continues. So it's like, if you're not having the self-awareness around what the waves are bringing, right, you could end up drowning in them.
Oh, for sure. Oh,
Yeah.
tell me about it. It's a lot, it is a lot. And
Yeah.
I like the idea of like, grounding into your body. Like somatic work
Yeah.
is so critical for overcoming, a lot of the issues that are
Mhm.
coming in. Like we have to feel into our body. You're absolutely correct. Because what happens
Yeah.
when we don't, and if we do numb out with social media, is that eventually our body starts to yell at us too. So the volcano can
Yeah.
happen even inside, right? Where it's like, oh, now I'm
Yeah.
trying to get your attention and you have to listen. You don't have a choice at this point.
Yeah.
And our body will speak louder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, it's, maybe, and that could be part of it too, even in discussing this, is that maybe there are things that I was avoiding looking at with social media because social media did become a big crutch for me and a big an addiction that I was like, man, I know I'm addicted. So that's like the first step, right? But I've known it for a while. And how am I, I need a social media anonymous. I mean, I'm going to create all these anonymous groups, man. I'm telling you, social media anonymous, like it's been 5 seconds since I've been off social media. You know what I mean? It's like the time is going to be so low. Um, but I do, now that I'm like looking at my health and stuff, I do feel this resentment towards social media in some way, right? And it's probably
Mm.
just a place that I can put my anger, which is like I'm resentful of it because I feel like I've wasted a lot of time, right? Which time is important to me. Just kind of numbing
Yeah.
out to social
Yeah.
media doesn't feel rewarding though in the end. There's
Right.
this underlying feeling of disappointment in myself around it
Yeah.
and this emptiness that surfaces because it's not filling a void. You know what I mean? It's an external thing
Right.
and it doesn't fill my cup either. Um, that even now I've been disgusted by social media in a lot of ways where I'm just like, and it's not even discussed at what's on there. I have my social media is never written with like people being hateful and stuff. It's all these like positive memes, and that's great. But I'm like, how many positive memes can I possibly read in a day? Go read a book, Natalie. That's what I tell myself. Go read a book or go outside and go for a walk. You know what I mean? And do these things. And so I think social media has been really uh I'll be on there for a little bit and then I'm just totally like, ugh, grossed out. It's starting to gross me out in a lot of ways. Um,
Yeah.
and
There's so much hatred and
and it's
negativity too, and like everyone trying to kind of do the same thing in a sense when it comes to like the business stuff, you know what I mean? And so it feels like a lot of competition, I think, in some ways, or you go and you look at something and then it's all in your advertisements for marketing. So it's like, you know what I mean? You get all this stuff directed towards you, like you can't escape like the whole, system of it, with the algorithms and the lack of privacy. For sure. I've done a lot better in the last few weeks. Being out there with you helped for sure. And since I've come back, so I barely have been touching my phone. So I'm really grateful for that because I do notice when I'm around like my friendship groups and then I'm not and I'm home, I'll tend to touch my phone more because like I know that's the link to connection because everybody is on the other end doing whatever, posting their
yeah.
stuff. So I totally understand like how it kind of draws you in subconsciously for connection. But then when you look at all the crap that you're really interacting with, it's not even worth it, because what kind of connection are you really getting? I'd rather just call you on the phone and talk to you.
Yep. Yep. I'm at that phase too. I'm like old school calling people and having chats on the phone. Like that's something
Yeah.
that I'm like, I'd rather just talk on the phone. And I do. I have a few people I'll just talk on the phone, chat with, whatever. And it doesn't particularly because I like I said, I don't get a lot of negative stuff on my Facebook. So I don't ever get like, look at all this sad. It's it's more of a Natalie not living her full potential and letting this kind of
Yeah.
overtake her not feeling like I don't have control, which is not a really that's not a good feeling whatsoever. And,
Yeah.
you know, not feel like you said the connection, is it really connection? Like, who am I really reaching? And I have to change that narrative and that mindset where it's like the people that I want to reach, I know will be in my immediate circle and then word of mouth more than, social media, even though we will do social media for women of consciousness. Is it about getting the numbers or is it more about serving the people and truly having that connection, right? Because it's such a individualistic way to see life. I
Mm.
mean, the one thing I do is like nutrition stuff for sure. I'll get on there and do nutrition stuff and talk about feeling how I feel in my journey nutritionally and hopefully help people. But beyond that, there's no reason for me to be on it. There's just absolutely no reason to be on. I mean, to connect for what? Like you said, get on the phone and call
Yeah.
somebody and communicate that way. And then I want to be with people in a community.
Yeah.
And that, you know, with individuals who are on the same path that I'm on, right? And so I think
Yeah.
that having that, as I move, I think is going to be the big thing. So that's another thing. It's like surrounding yourself with a community of individuals who are wanting to co-create, or even you can have a good conversation with and they put their phones away and it's just you and you're with them. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
one thing that I'm the same way. If I'm with people, my phone, it disappears. Because I really what I'm
Yeah.
looking for is connection at the end of the day. I'm not
Right.
looking for anything else. People are looking to numb out maybe I guess it would be numbing out maybe loneliness because if with connection, right? It's like I got to sit with myself too, be able to sit with myself. But
Yeah.
I think people will use it for other means. Like it could be for, they're angry or they're this or that, like you said, and they're trying to put their emotions in there. I think for me, it's more like let me find a community and connect. And it's such an artificial way
Yeah.
to connect, but it's such a habit, you know, than meeting people in person and being around them, which is something that I get to overcome.
Yeah.
Is like being with people, being in community with individuals. And I'm working on it. It's not been easy for me to do that. Um I've been pretty like a hermit, and it's not healthy. It's not. I need to get
Yeah.
out. I need to move. Um And I know that moving's gonna be a step in the right direction, and that's a big piece of it too. So that, these individuals, who are in nature and you know what I mean? Um,
Mm.
they're at one with nature. They're doing, I have a community of people who I can connect with all the time, kind of like if we were in the same area, we would be connecting all the time. You know what I mean? We'd be having coffee, having
Yeah.
conversations, having tea, talking about business stuff, collaborations, and all that kind of stuff. But so,
Yeah.
I think
Absolutely.
with individuals, like that's it, it's just, there's a lot of different, it's not just one thing that's like trying to hold us down. There's so many things, and that's what makes it so hard. And that's why there are
Yeah.
trying times because we're being hit with so many things all at once in so many different ways.
Layers
And
and
it's so much.
layers.
It's just so
Yeah.
much. I mean, I feel for the collective, because I know if I'm feeling it, a lot of people are feeling it. It just makes my heart just cry, I guess is what is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like sadness there because it's like we should be able to live this beautiful, joyous life and everybody's just hustle, hustle, hustle to the breaking point, mentally.
Yeah.
And then it is breaking us physically because even though these jobs may not be like physical outside, the mental stuff, then we start eating unhealthy and then nobody's healthy. You know what I mean? So it's just like this,
Right.
it's hard. There's a lot going on. But to overcome, find community, people you connect with, um, minimize your social media if you can. This is very true. Know your body, get back into your body somatically, and then nurture your body the way that it can, because that's something that you can take care of. And get your blood work checked. I always tell people do that. See if you're
Mm.
deficient in anything and make sure that you get all the vitamins and nutrients you need so that your cells are happy. That's what I'm going to be doing. So that's how I'm
Mm.
overcoming my stuff, right? Is just focusing on the body and then focusing on my relationships. And I think right now
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah. Self-care for sure is so important. Um, I know with me, I'm definitely very much aware of where we are energetically in the cycle, as you would know, right? Pam's always, but I'm not trying to track the cycles. I just know. But the eclipse is,
Maybe doing.
so I'm hoping that the eclipses will close out since the fall.
Uh-huh.
The energy that has been the past 6 months or so. So I'm definitely feeling some new beginnings. We're a week out, from spring here in the northern hemisphere. So extremely feeling that, like the seed, right? The seed about to be planted and rooting.
Yep.
I can't wait to see what I blossom into this year.
I love that. Yeah. What are we
But yeah, there's
blossoming?
a lot of heavy. Yeah.
What are we blossoming? Lots of stuff.
Mm. Right,
We've
beautiful, beautiful
planted a lot of
roses,
things. I know.
hella
Yes.
lilies. But,
Um,
yeah, just yeah, doing the work, right? Even if we don't want to, even when we cry and bitch and complain, "I didn't sign up for this." Still showing up and doing the work. So
that's
I think
right.
that's the
Show
most
up and do it.
important thing really is self-love and self-empowerment by, working through your triggers and your wounds. To like you said, it's about our own potential as human beings. We all have shadows and we all have golden shadows and we just need to do the work and excavate what's within and integrate and right keep stepping into our potential to be better and more self-aware, so that we can live from compassion and empathy because misery loves company. And apparently compassion, how did you say it was suffering together? So I guess I'd rather have compassion than misery.
Yes. Let's have compassion. Let's suffer together. Uh, together we suffer. But I mean, and that's the Buddha, right? That's like compassion is the way out, right? It's like having compassion and all that stuff. So, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so we thank you for being here. It's a little over an hour. So we thank you for
Yeah.
being
Thank you
here
very
today.
much.
We're gonna be doing goddess circles. So if you do want to reach out to us, please do womenofconsciousness.com, or you can go to our Instagram or Facebook at Women of Consciousness. And if you have a message, we also do oracle readings, life coaching. We're focusing right now on women who are feeling like they constantly are chasing after love or chasing after career or chasing all this stuff and who are ready to actually sit still and find the love within themselves and love themselves and empower themselves instead of chasing or thinking that they need something outside themselves to be whole, perfect, and complete, and really focusing on that inner goddess. So we are going to be doing the goddess circles to start. Please show up. We will send you the link if you're interested. You can subscribe. to our email list on our website, and then we can send you that information. And if you have any questions, you can also email us as well at womenofconsciousness@gmail.com. And anything else, Pam?
No, I don't think so. It was a lovely show as always. Just really grateful that I have you as a support system, for sure, as we get through some of this heavy energy together.
Yes. Together. Awesome.
Together.
Have a good day. Yes, together. Yeah. Have a good day,
Yeah.
guys.
Bye, everyone.